Well, good afternoon, or good evening, or good morning, folks, boys and girls. We've got a little different bit of a show here today. We've got guests Kathy and Peter Hildebrandt with us, and these folks have traveled around the world in bits and pieces, as Peter is fond of saying. And we're going to have a show or two or three about their travels. Kathy has compiled journals for each of their trips, and as Peter told me, he must have 100,000 photos. So we've got plenty of data to go through, but we're going to hear the stories, I should say, of these trips. But first, Kathy? Mm-hmm. Kathy Riley.
Yes, Riley.
And
yeah.
Kathy is a Norfolk native.
Yeah. Well, I missed by 3 months.
No.
Yeah, I was born in Milford, but we didn't move into the house until...
Oh.
Actually, maybe it was August. I'm not sure. But yes, I've been here since I was 3 months old.
Well, I think we can let you skate under the line and call you a townie.
Yeah.
Great.
I am pretty much a townie.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Attended Walpole High?
No, I didn't go.
King Philip.
I was in the first class to go to King Philip in the 6th grade. We did 6 through 12 at that time. And who was it? Mr. Presley was our...
Mr. Presley, Warren Presley.
Warren Presley was our...
Mr. White was the assistant principal.
Yes. And
the hatchet man.
Oh, he was a good guy, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was an interest, a good experience.
Yeah. I was in the first graduating class.
Right, yeah.
58.
Yeah. My sister went to, she went to Walpole for 2 years, and then she came over when she was in the 8th or, I think, 9th grade.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to go to King Philip because...
Good. Well, that's good.
Peter,
you're not a townie. You're from Framingham, it seems to me. And somehow or other you found Kathy and...
I met her in Framingham at a nice little Timothy's Two Spirit Company, which was owned by the Hanna family, which owns Ken's Steakhouse.
Right. Ken Hanna.
Yeah, and Timmy was a very good friend of mine, and I called up Kathy for a date, and I didn't even know where this little town out in the middle of nowhere was. And I had to find it, and we started dating, and we started traveling.
And the rest is history.
And the rest is history. And how many years ago was that?
Well, we've been married 45 years, so I met you in 1970, so it's actually 48 years that we've been
lucky woman
and married.
I'm sure there'll be a medal coming shortly for you.
Yes, I believe there is, but it hasn't arrived yet. So I guess I'm just not as perfect as I thought I was.
It is being struck as we speak, I'm sure. And Peter, you made your living as a house painter?
Well, it was actually, I started off with a truck from Hamlin Cabinets, and it was an old bread truck. And I was with General Tire before. I was working my way up the corporate ladder, and they were going to send me out to Akron to take this job, and I said, no way. It was just too much. And I started my business in Natick, and then I came to town here, and on the side of my truck I had everything: window washing, chimney cleaning, gutters, I mean, anything. And people, I had some funny incidents because this lady called me up in Noon Hill to cut down a tree. And my brother and I went up there, and it was a huge tree, and she had the house, and then beside the house was the garage. And there was a space between the house and the garage. And what we were doing is we weren't dropping it between the house and the garage, we were dropping it out towards the street. And as we're cutting it, a gust of wind caught it, and my heart just went, oh my God, and it fell right between the house and the garage.
Those trees have a mind of their
Right.
own.
And she came out to me and she says, Peter, she says, I didn't think you knew what you were doing. And she says, you dropped that right between the house and the garage. And the first thing I did is I cut the bottom of the stump off because anybody could tell it was supposed to go that way and not that way. So that was one of the first things I gave up cutting was trees. Yeah, and
Yeah, I got some trees at my house.
I know, I still gotta get
I
those.
know that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And Kathy, you were a school teacher.
Yes, I was. I went to Anna Maria College in Paxton and had the expectation of going off to wherever, and but I ended up in Walpole.
Wherever was Walpole.
Yeah, yeah. Wherever happened. Well, I taught 3 years in Holden.
Okay.
I lived with my aunts up there in Paxton, and then my dad died, so I came home, and I had a brother and sister there to kind of keep an eye on and help out.
Tom Riley Sr.
Yeah, Tom Riley
The
Sr.
U.S. history teacher.
Yes.
Walpole High.
Oh, yeah.
I remember him well.
Yeah. Well, I still get it, everyone. Well, I'm not in Walpole as much, but
Right.
when I was teaching, there was always someone who knew Dad or
Oh, yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that. So, yeah. And then I taught in Walpole for 33 years, I think.
Yeah.
And then I retired.
That's great. Great.
Yeah.
Now, your first trip was
Up to the Allagash. What happened is we didn't have much money, and yet Kathy had the summer off, and my business, I could do it in the spring and the fall. And I said to her, because she's never went camping before, I says, why don't we go up towards the Allagash and go camping? And she said, how long? I says, 2 months, like that. And we did the west branch of the Penobscot first, down to Chamberlain Lake, and then across that way. And then after a couple of years, then we flew into Allagash Lake by a float plane. And we canoed all the way up until the St. Lawrence River. And that took us, and this is amazing, because it took us almost 2 months. And we weren't in any rush, but when we were flying on the plane, he goes, how much provisions do you have? And I says, we got 60 pounds of provisions. And most of it was canned stuff so that we could mix it. But we had some steaks that I was saving till last that we got at Bisson's Farm, and I had them under dry ice. And when we finally went to get them 3 weeks later,
I can guess.
they weren't edible.
Right.
So, and you don't leave anything. You burn all your food, and then you save anything and crush it. And then when the rangers come by, they are so happy to take it, because most people bury it, and it's the worst thing because the bears find it in about 2 seconds and they bring them into the camp area.
Now, for the folks that are not great challenged geographically, the Allagash you're talking about is the Allagash River Wilderness section of northwest Maine.
Yeah. Above the Moosehead Lake.
Yeah,
Above Moosehead
Yep.
Lake, yeah.
Yep.
Goes all the way up into Canada, right?
absolutely. Yeah. And that's wonderful, wonderful territory up
Yeah.
there.
We had some real good experience, like when we flew into Allagash Lake, the pilot says, you're going to have trouble. Like that, and I said, why? He said, the beaver dams. He says, this part, because he wanted us to take us down to further down, and I said, no. I said, well, we're going to do it from the beginning to the end. Yeah. And Kathy wasn't too happy, because every maybe half a mile, we hit beaver dams, so we had to take everything out and cross it. So that night we had a great thing, so we took off the next morning, and guess what was in front of us? A waterfall. And it was only about 4 feet, but there was no way we were going to miss it.
Yeah.
We were going, and she says this, I said, we're going over it. Well, we did go over it, and of course the canoe you're a canoeist, went down under, right, came back up, and we had to go to the shore, take everything out, but I didn't tell her that we knocked a hole in the bottom of the canoe, and this was the beginning of the trip. So that night, as we were getting to the next campground, I was bailing all the time. And so then we had to take everything out, and I put it over the fire to dry it out. And I had a fiberglass kit and fixed it. And people, when they go in there, they have to think of these things. And it's stupid. People don't go in with medical kits. They don't go in with this, that, or that. And you got to have it, because if I didn't, the trip would have been over.
It'd still
right
be
there.
up there.
It'd still be up there.
Yeah.
And when you cross the lakes are over 100 miles long.
Sure.
You do it right at sunrise, because what happens during the day, the wind builds up and so don't the waves. Mm-hmm. So there was another couple there, and I said, look, when we get halfway across, I will take the paddle and put it up in the air. That means we're going the rest of the way. If we're not, we're coming back, right? So we got halfway across and we put it up. And the people we met some fabulous people on the trip, and we met these other people that were doing. You can tell them this story about what they didn't actually do anything.
Oh,
They
that
had
was
the
later
guide.
on. We'd been up to the Allagash area many a time and camping and whatever in Moosehead Lake. But as time went on, we took the float plane in, but they closed Allagash Lake to airplanes and several others, so that they were trying to keep it as pristine and healthy as it can be. So anyway, that was a good thing, and we were out, I think it was one of our last trips up that way in a while, and I looked at this gentleman coming in a canoe. It was all packed, and he was alone, and he got out and he started putting tents up and everything, and I'm saying, must be a gang coming in. Well, then I looked down, and there was a family of 4 in a canoe paddling along very nicely. They come up to the shore. He came and greeted them and pulled the thing up, and they dispersed. They did nothing and they had 2 young kids, 2 young boys, and I said,
He found my beer too.
yeah, he found your beer. But they weren't really participating. He was a hired guide.
Oh, okay.
And that's the new form of the guide business that started
Sure.
up that way. And I said, oh, what a shame. These boys aren't learning the tenting, how to tent and how to build. The fire was already started. And I said, oh, what a...
Learn to sleep and eat. That's about it.
And I said, I guess it's time for us to find a new place. Because I was really disappointed in that kind of... I have no objections to the guide. It's just that they weren't involved.
Yeah. Why bother?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a friend, I still do have a friend, one of the last wilderness trappers in Maine, Oscar Kronk.
Oh, wow.
And he trapped up there in the Allagash. He had a camp at Eagle Lake.
Oh, yeah.
And quite a guy.
Yeah.
A lot of great stories.
A lot of wonderful stories from those people. And you got to track them down, though, because...
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah.
Well, you know.
I know Oscar. He's a funny guy.
We had a real funny one happen. It was one of our first trips up there where we did certain lakes, and we went to this place, Little Pillsbury, and it was Big Pillsbury, and I set the tent up and everything else. We had a 2-man tent. Back then we just had the Jeep and a 1-wheel trailer, and that was a strange thing because the 1 wheel was in the middle, and the way the bridges were built, they didn't have a middle. As I went whipping down, and I said, oh, and I jammed the brakes on, so I had to put the winch all the way across the window and across the roll bar and hold it up to cross these bridges. Oh. Well, we got out there, and of course, I lost my hearing in the military. I can't hear very much, and I didn't have any hearing aids at that time either. And what happened, in the morning, we got up, and we were both without any clothes on, and we went down and had a nice little bathing and everything else, and she says, I hear something. And I said, they can't. I said, you can see all the way down the road. Nobody can come in this way. Well, as I turned around, I saw the sun ricochet off this windshield coming in the other way. Well, we ran back to the tent. We got dressed very quickly. And these 2 rangers came in, and they said, hi, and they checked all our equipment, said, you got enough gas to get out of here and everything else. Yeah. Never mentioned anything that we were nude, so we figured we got away with it. And as they were leaving, they both had their backs to us, and they were walking out, and he says, next time we come, we'll shake the bushes. He was probably up there for a good half an hour with his binoculars.
No, I doubt that.
Did tape ever show up?
What?
The tape ever show up?
No. No, it was fun.
The reason what we did these trips is because they were free. We didn't have much money at that time. And people say, well, we can't go anywhere, we don't have any money. Well, we figured out a way of doing it. We didn't even have to, on those trips, pay for the campgrounds. They were free, they were open.
Yeah.
And the main thing, again, as I mentioned before, you have to pick up your own trash.
That's it.
We had this fellow, Tunny King, came in one time, and he met us, right? And I asked Tunny, I said, do you mind taking this stuff out with you? He says, no. I'd love to, yeah.
Well, his father trained... Wasn't there a boxer, Tunny King, or is that who Tunny was made?
Yeah, there was boxing back in the 30s.
Because he used to do his training up there. They had things in his area.
Yeah.
I guess his father was involved in this somehow. I don't remember the whole story, but he was a great guy. We made good friends with him.
Did you have to fish for your supper?
We did some fishing, but she's Irish Catholic. She doesn't like fish. I don't know why.
Oh, just on Friday.
Yeah. No, my fish came out of the tuna can. No, I'm not a fish eater.
But the thing that we stayed at was the Moosehead Lake was campground, and it had a lot of history to it. And we could drive in there with our camper. But during the Second World War, it was a prisoner of war camp for German prisoners. But it had no fences or anything else. And the Germans, when they got there, they said, "There's no fences." They said, "Escape if you want to." He says, "It's 200 miles that way." And back then, there was no roads or anything else. "You're not going to get out of here," right? And it was quite something. But they had a graveyard there for the Germans also.
Yeah.
A lot of the Germans worked the potato fields up in Aroostook County, too.
Probably, yeah.
A lot of the prisoners of war.
A lot of people don't realize that they sent the prisoners of war over to
Oh,
the
yeah.
United States.
Yeah.
You know.
There was large quantities of German prisoners in this country.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting, off the subject, but we treated the German prisoners of war totally different than we treated the Japanese prisoners of war. First of all, we didn't get that many Japanese prisoners because they wouldn't surrender.
Yeah.
You ended up killing. You had to kill them.
Yeah.
Because they fought right to the end. But we had a different standard. And I think it was mostly because we had a lot of German immigrants in this country. And it was almost like, well, they were us. But those guys, no, they weren't us.
Yeah, it was the prejudice there.
Yeah. So, any other, so you went up around Moosehead, and now Moosehead is being developed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
Well, one time we surprised a family up there that owned the campground, and we took our sailboat up there.
Sabumic Wilderness
Sabumic
Campground up
right.
there.
And we went to Moosehead, and that's where we were at Tunny Kings, and I put the sailboat in there, and we sailed up. And it was quite interesting because I'm used to the ocean where you go out and it gets deep. While in the middle of the lakes, it could be, right underneath the water, so you had to watch the water all the time, or else you would have bottomed out.
And the winds were entirely different. I mean, with the way they'd come swooping down on you, it was just, it was an experience. It's a good experience.
But when they ever saw us sailing in.
We sailed right up to the beach there.
They probably thought it was Columbus returning.
Yeah.
There's very few people, they don't really sail that.
No, they don't.
No.
No, not up there.
Well, I don't think it's a great sailing lake, to tell you the truth. But
When you go follow 201 up to Jackman,
yeah.
before you get to Jackman, I think it's a Tanis Pond on your left. It's at the top of a good-sized hill, as they call them in Maine.
Yeah.
I swear that's one of the most beautiful sights I've ever seen in my life up there. That's beautiful country up there.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is.
Beautiful country. When they talk about life the way it should be, it is.
It is very nice.
Although a waitress in, I think it was Skowhegan, but I forget, at a little lunch counter where I was eating, I said, beautiful, beautiful country up here. She said, this is the most beautiful place in the world to live in poverty.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, yeah.
Too.
There's no job.
They didn't have anything.
No, if they weren't in, like something like Greenville and those small towns, they didn't have much. In fact, we drove through there many a time, and remember the whole town was for sale.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he was really eager to, maybe we should do this. And I said, I don't think so.
My brother-in-law, his family, has a camp at the Forks.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And we'd go up there, do a little trapping and stuff. And I went up there one year, and it said the Forks, population 48.
Oh, yeah.
Next time I went up, the Forks, Population 29.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody had sold a bunch of holdings,
Yeah.
and that was it.
Yeah. I mean, it's you know, I mean, if you can't make a living, you really have to do something with kids and everything. But
If you're retired
yeah,
and you're not interested in creature comforts, but
yeah.
the outdoors and stuff
Yeah.
like that, it's wonderful.
Oh, it is. But
if-
the travel to get the food. I remember when we'd be at Sabumik and Janet, she was in head
One
of
of the
the
owners.
food and one of the owners. So she would get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and on a certain day and have to travel all the way down to Bangor.
No, the Moosehead.
No. She wouldn't be on
Oh,
Bangor
yeah,
to
that's
do
right,
the
yeah.
big food shopping. I think Bangor was the closest city, but I'm not sure. But I mean, she would be gone. Sometimes she stayed overnight and came back the
Probably
next day.
Waterville. Could be Waterville.
Might have been Waterville, yeah. But it was a long, long haul.
Long haul.
Long haul, because it's 15 miles of dirt road
Yep.
out
Yep.
there. And I don't know that they've ever paved it. I don't think so.
Probably not.
And the other,
I hope
the,
not.
The other trips that we did to Maine, we did it on the bike one time, and cycling. And we started, of course, in Norfolk, and we went up through Massachusetts into Maine. Then we grabbed a ferry over from, where was it?
Portland, I think.
Yeah,
It
Portland.
was
The
still
Blue
running.
Nose?
Yeah,
It was
Portland.
still running,
And that
yeah.
took us up quite a ways. And then we biked all the way up into Canada. And it's amazing that if they saw Kathy, because I carried 75 pounds on my bike and she carried 50. People say, well, they're motorbikes. I said, no, they were pedal bikes. And the thing about it, we finally got up into Canada, and we were coming up this fjord, and it was dirt. And we started early in the morning, and you couldn't push the bike. It was that steep. You had to go like this, back, forth, back,
Oh, wow.
forth, back, forth. So we're getting near the top, and the guy's up there sitting on the bulldozer. And he's looking down like this, and I get up there, and I drop my bike, and I grab my camera, and that's one of the pictures we had there. Every muscle in Kathy's body was moving. And I took the camera like that, and she says, if you take a picture of me, I'm going to jam it. And I says, and the guy on the bulldozer goes, nice language out of that lady. And he says, she says, I'll tell you what you can do with your bulldozer.
Did you do it?
No, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. That was because that was always one of my rules. No dirt, no rocks, nothing but pavement. And that only happened twice. One in New Zealand and Maine. It was I just couldn't stand it. I don't imagine why people go out and ride in the dirt.
You'll be seeing
But
some of those
they-
pictures, like in New Zealand, I took a shortcut and I took a boat across the lake and landed on this dirt road that went through the mountains, and all there was on there was old
Mining.
gold mines,
Gold mines,
and they weren't safe enough. I wanted to go inside, but they weren't safe enough. But I got a picture of Kathy out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you can't see anything on that side, and she says, look, in one of your shortcuts. I said, we'll get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been very fortunate, especially when we took that year off and biked around the world, and when we get into that later.
Yeah. So what was your next trip?
Well, we did multiple camping trips, and then we
Then we wanted to go to Europe.
We wanted to go to Europe, and that's when he said, do you want to go to Europe? And I said, sure. And he said, for 2 weeks or 2 months. And I said, well, we can't afford 2 months. And he said, well, we can if we go on the bicycles. Well, that's how we started. And we went off on the bicycles.
And the thing with the airlines took the bikes. Some of them we had to box them, and others they just took them right on there.
No, the only one that took them on there was the Australian Airlines, Qantas.
Australia. But
But they let the air out of the
tires.
tires.
Yeah.
Why, I don't know.
And I went to them when we landed, and I just, because it's very hard with the little pump we have, because I pump these things up to 80 pounds. I said, why did you let the air out of the tires? And they said, so they wouldn't explode. I said, do you let the air out of the plane tires? And he goes, no. Did they explode?
You were banned shortly after that
Yeah.
for flying on
Oh, they were
Qantas,
not
right?
happy. Yeah, they were not
Well,
happy.
when we went around the world, we had a ticket that would cost us, I think it was around $1,200 each. And it was amazing of the ticket, it wasn't on one airlines.
No,
We went on
yeah.
all different airlines. We were on Qantas, we were on Alaskan Airlines. And
As
I don't
long
know
as
how
we
they worked
traveled
it,
west.
You know. The only time we had to pay for a ticket was in China.
Yes.
And we had to pay for the ticket to get into Guilin.
We had to bring our own gum to hold the plane together.
Yeah. Oh,
That was a flight. That was amazing. But our first trip, the bike trip, was in 1981. And it's when we basically were going to Ireland, and we got a ride in. My friend Neil and his girlfriend Nancy drove us into the airport, and off we went. And when we arrived at the Shannon airport, we had to put our bikes together because they were boxed. So we had all our stuff, and Peter's got all the tools out and doing this and doing that. And finally we were ready, and they'd all gone.
yeah,
They just-
because we wanted to go through security because they were checking it
Yeah.
like that. And they said they left a long time ago.
Yeah.
They just took one look at you guys and left.
Because in those days it was the IRA, and there were people that would send things
Sure.
over,
yeah.
and they put stuff in the bikes and the pipes and so on, and that kind of. I mean, that's my suspicion, but it was
Ireland,
funny.
yeah, in Ireland they have a saying: "May the wind always be at your back."
Right.
We surely found out what that meant. I mean, we biked one time, and in 8 hours, we did about 8 miles. I mean, I couldn't even look back. Every muscle in my body was going like this. And we stopped at all these B&Bs, and everybody was fabulous. And we kissed the Blarney Stone, and we went to, I think we did, if you look in here on the mileage, it was kind of funny because I found this afterwards. I didn't know Kathy kept it.
And I think it was the first and only time we got to
Yeah,
tire
it's the only
some.
time we kept the mileage.
It wasn't really important to us,
Like we left Shannon, right? And what's that word?
Ernestine.
Ernestine.
Ennistinment. It's an Ennistinment or something. I don't know.
And that
one of
was
the
18
towns.
miles. The next way
Estimated,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Yeah.
The next day to Duane was 35 miles, and we kept tabs of all the miles where we went,
Yeah.
and crossing the mountains and everything else. But the people were so friendly. I mean, especially being on bicycles. We ended up one place where the ocean went out into, what was it, about 4 feet deep, but the waves broke out about 100 yards, and the wave just kept coming in. And I used to do body surfing, and I said, I got to do that, right? And this guy looked at us where we parked the bikes, and he says, people don't swim in there. The water was very cold.
Sure.
And I went out there, did it a couple of times, and he says, there's a place right up the thing you can take a hot tub. And I said, that's great. So Kathy and I went up there, and we walked in there, we hopped in this hot tub, and it was beautiful, right? They came in with this bucket of seaweed, the big, huge, slimy seaweed.
Yep.
And guess where they dumped it?
On you.
Right into the hot tub. And then about 10 minutes later, that hot tub turned into Jell-O. And it was the most unbelievable sensation you'd ever want to have in
Really?
your lifetime. She thought it was crazy. I said, this is great. But the people we met, I mean, when you're on bicycles, you're not part of tourism because you're stopping at places tourists don't stop. We stopped at towns people wouldn't stop at. And we went in this one bar one night, and nobody else was there yet. And the fellow says, can I help you? And I says, I will have, a pint of beer, and my wife will have a screwdriver. And he says, oh, you'll have a pint of beer, and she'll have a screwdriver. So he came back, he says, would a hammer do? And he goes, what is that? And I says, that's a drink. And how do you make that? And we said, vodka
Orange juice.
and orange juice. Well, he made it with vodka and orange juice. Like this, like that. And he put it up there. He said, I'm going to put this up there that we'll always have screwdrivers for you Americans.
Well, that's when you realize because they didn't make,
Sure.
the classic drinks that we would have. So,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
you had to switch over to beer, or even the wine supply at that time was,
Was dicey.
yeah. Food was always pretty good, though, and people were friendly, so that's all that mattered.
Well,
you know?
that's what it's all about.
I mean, the day we arrived in Shannon, we went to we found a B&B right near the airport, and we rested and had a nap and so on. And when we got up, they were having the children do the Irish step dance, you know,
For
for the
us, yeah.
guests, for us. You know, we were the guests, so the kids did that, and I said, oh, what a nice, you know, just, they didn't have to do that.
No.
You know, just invited us. We had dinner out. We went out for dinner or something, and then when we came back, it was quite nice. It was quite beautiful, and just spontaneous.
Yeah.
You know, it was
That's great.
not expected.
And we covered over 100 miles on that trip in Ireland.
Now, you
And-
stayed in Southern Ireland.
Yeah, we stayed in the southern that trip. A couple of years later, we did the opposite. No, we didn't go into Northern Ireland. We did the southern part of the southern part,
Okay.
right? And then the next time we did the northern part of the southern part. They did not want us to go into Northern Ireland.
Right.
They stopped us at the thing and said, no, you don't want to go in there. It's not safe. And it was one time we pulled into the Ashford Castle. Well, the Ashford Castle is for the super rich. And here we come whipping in on bicycles. And we walked up to the front door, and the man says, can I help you? And I says, yes, we'd like to stay for the night. And he goes, well, he says, we have dress rules. And I says, well, we have to stay the night, I says, because there's nowhere else to go. So they finally said yes. And he said, go down, because all we had was shorts. And so he says, go down, and he says, they're going to give you a jacket. So they gave me a tuxedo jacket, yet with shorts, right? And of course, that's the way we went in there, and we sat there, and this one guy was cracking up laughing, and he says, they won't even let me speak to you. Like this, he says, after you finish, I want you to go into the bar. He said, I want to buy you guys a drink. He says, I've never laughed so hard in my lifetime. They wanted to feed us and get us out of there, right? And it was really, really comical.
It was, yeah. But it was the French restaurant. That's why it was the French restaurant, and we wanted to be in there. And I mean, once they got over their stuffiness, it was okay. I mean, we weren't mistreated or anything, but it was funny to have them so perplexed as to, now, what do we do with these people? Really,
But that was
feed
not
them
our
and get them
second-
out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was not our second trip to Ireland.
yeah. Well, you golfed in Killarney. Yeah, you did actually do all that.
Then we
Went to the
when we
lakes of Killarney, played 18 holes.
And then the other thing that happened after we left there, because we were having trouble with the bikes, we got they call it an overnight from Ireland to France. And then we biked into Paris, and we took the bikes to Motobacan. And the French are the French, like this. Monsieur, they are touring bikes. And I said, that's what we're doing. He said, but no weight. No weight. You can't take the weight, the rims. And so they finally replaced the rims, which was nice of them.
Well, because they were racing bikes in France. That's what they refer to as touring. When they are touring, they're racing.
Of
And they're
course.
these light bikes, and, and we bought them thinking that, made in France, touring bikes.
Sure.
And we were touring, and so it's just a matter of either not doing your homework or just totally
This is how
misunderstanding.
wars start.
Yeah.
We don't understand one
Yeah,
another.
right, yeah.
Well, the thing that was funny about it is that here it was, what year was that? 81?
Well, that was 81.
And the thing was that the French, if you didn't speak French, they didn't really want to speak to you.
Right.
And
Oh, then, yeah.
yeah, we went to a restaurant, and they treated us horrible. They put the food on the table like this, and Kathy was kind of, disturbed. So finally, the bill came, and they had the tip added in, the gratuity added in. So I deducted it. It's hypothetical. Let's say it was 100 francs. I gave him 85 francs. Now in perfect English, he says, Monsieur. He says, 100 francs. And I went, no ticky, no laundry. I says, you didn't give us any service like that. And I says, you threw the food on the table. And I says, we were really, don't you come back to my restaurant. I said, do you think we would? And we left. Well, Kathy says, I don't want to do this anymore in Paris. I says, I know the ways. So the following night we went out, and it goes, it's simply beautiful city, most beautiful city you'd ever want to see.
It is.
And there was this little restaurant, and they had 4 tables inside and 3 tables outside. And I went, parlez-vous anglais? Non. Parlez-vous anglais? No. Like this. And so I said one more time, no parlez-vous anglais? No. I said, we should let the Germans keep these son of a bitches. Right? The place went dead quiet. And I goes, no parlez-vous anglais? And they laughed and they brought us in. They went like this. The guy was, and they were very nice to us after that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was the way it is. They're not that way now because the Italians are there, and they all have English menus. They have, one in Italian, one in English. So, but back
now,
then, that was
they had
hard for us.
one menu. You couldn't find a different restaurant there. It was all French restaurants, which is fine. I mean, the food was wonderful.
When in France.
Right, in France. And then you'd go to the next place, and it'd be all of that particular food. I mean, this is going back. And, I mean, it's changed simply because the world has changed.
Yeah, exactly.
Many more people around, So, it was fun. Paris. It's a beautiful,
It's a
beautiful city. I love that city.
And we met some fabulous people there. And we went to the Moulin Rouge. We went to the Can. And
the people would come and we'd say we wanted to go. We were at some place and there was, no tickets, no room in there. So he took us outside, stood us on the street, and pointed because he didn't speak English and we didn't speak enough French. So he told us up there, and my friend will take care of you when you get there. And remember, we went up on that second floor and he started collecting all the empty bottles, not the bottles that people had left. They have wine and everything, so they put them in front of us. It was so funny, yeah. They gave us clean glasses, beggars can't be choosy.
That's it, exactly.
And we saw a great show.
And the first night we were in Paris, we camped at we thought was a campground in the center of Paris. And the next day, the gendarme going, no, 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 no. And we went, oui, but it was right, it was not even...
It was across the sidewalk.
Across the street. We just, there was no markings or anything else, so we had to go there.
We had to move from this side of the grass to the
that
correct
side of the
grass.
It was right in front of the Eiffel Tower. It was
wow.
absolutely incredible. I mean, and they have facilities all along the way there where you can wash up and all that kind of stuff. So I prefer the hotels.
Never mind roughing it.
Yeah,
huh?
I know. Yeah, it's a little easier. Well, we did. We went into that hotel in Notre Dame, right beside the church, and beautiful view out there. We got a room.
And once we got outside of Paris, the people were very friendly. They tried to speak English and everything else. They lost our bikes on the train, which we weren't too happy about, but they showed up about 4 hours later.
It was even longer than that. It was the next day, but they got on the baggage cars, because that's why we went to Europe in the first place, in those areas, and Great Britain and stuff, because you could bring your bikes on the trains. Mm-hmm. It was not a problem. Now, recently, we've been allowed to bring our bikes on the trains here, and it's a little bit easier.
I see going to Boston and back.
Yeah.
The kids bring their bikes on in the MBTA.
Yeah. You're limited in the hours you can do it. I mean, the rush hour, obviously, there's enough people there, but they have the baggage cars there. You just put them in there, and they're safe, and
and sometimes you get them back, and sometimes you gotta wait.
Well, they came the next day, so it wasn't too bad. Yeah.
And after we left Paris, we went down, and we're headed towards Nice, which is down on the Mediterranean. And that's why on these maps here, we had to get all these French maps, which were fantastic, and we know where we were going because we couldn't communicate. But we got to this winery, and it was funny. It was a huge winery, and I said, let's go in and get a couple bottles of wine. So we went in there, a nice dirt road, in about a half a mile and a mile. So we got in there, and the fellow came up to us, and he says, are you here for wine, or are you here for the ruins? And I says, we're here for wine, but what ruins? He says, this was once the furthest outpost of the Roman Empire before they moved on to England. And it's still fairly well in shape. He says, do you have camping? And I says, yes, we have our camping gear. He says, be our guest and you can stay there. So here we had wine, we had enough food and everything else. I could not go to sleep. I mean, you're sitting there with these towers, because it was built up and it was an outpost. It was just amazing to see that, this goes back to BC.
It's like a little kid,
yeah.
all excited.
Oh, I couldn't like that. It was just fabulous.
It was amazing. I mean, you're just looking at these white columns and going, it's unreal.
Yeah.
Or surreal, as some people would say. I don't know, but it was fun.
Then we cycled from there down to Nice, and we got into Nice. We were camping on a beach, and the gendarme come up and he went, no, 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 no. And I goes, oui, 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 oui. And he goes, no. And I goes, gypsy. Like this, because I found out the gypsy law. The gypsies can stay one night and move on. He goes, you know gypsy, and I'm going, hola, la, 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 la.
He said American gypsy.
Yeah, American gypsy, and he finally shook his head and just went on.
Yeah.
Like that.
He had enough.
Yeah, he had.
But the people that we met, 90% of the time were, you could communicate. But we stopped at a campground one night, and it was really kind of, because we don't take up much space, we take up a little more space than we're right here.
Yeah.
And it had complete on the outside. And we went in there, right? We had a couple bottles of wine, we had food for the night and everything else. And they went complete, and they wouldn't allow us to stay. I said, but we just need them, and wouldn't. Yeah. So what we were doing is we were headed for Monte Carlo, but it was late in the afternoon, and we got up on top of this hill, and I looked down at this peninsula. It was all rocks going out into the Mediterranean, and I saw a tent down there. And I said, Kath, she says, you're not going to go down there. And I said,
Yep.
We're going to go somewhere, right? So we parked there. You didn't even have to lock the bikes because no one was going to steal them. We're on a sheer cliff. And we took the tent down and we set everything up, and we had a great night that night. And these three boys came over the next day.
Well, I'm going to interject. He makes it sound so easy. We had to lift the bikes up and over the railing and then tie them there and get everything there. So, and it was all rocky. It wasn't, like a day at the beach.
Sort of designed for mountain goats only.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean.
So the next day, these, the Italian boys came over, and they spoke very good English like that. And he says, "You want to go caving?" And Huckleberry Finn, I says, "Of course," like that. He says, "Well, this was once the Germans drilled a hole through the mountain, and they brought their torpedoes through the mountain, and then fed them out to the
U-boats.
to the U-boats.
Yeah.
But when you went in, because here's the face of the thing, the opening was here so that a shell could not come and go into the hole. You can't make a shell go around the corner.
Right.
But it was just, it was covered with bushes and everything else, and they panicked. And Huckleberry Finn here says, "No, don't worry about it." So we finally got inside, and they called flashlight torches. So we had the torches, and we're walking around. You could almost stand up perfectly. And on the side, they had these air vents built that went up and out. And we're walking along, and we must have been a good 50 to 100 yards inside. And I put my flashlight in, and I says, "Stop, grenade." And I looked in, and there was an American grenade lying there. And on the back of the grenade was this box. The box was about yay big. And I goes like that, and I goes, "Don't even think of touching that." Like that, and like this. And I finally said, "All right." Now, I said, "Don't touch it." So I went back out, and next day, it drove me nuts. I said, "What's in that box?"
Thought it was full of diamonds.
And diamonds, jewelry,
Money
and
from
everything else.
Monte Carlo.
So I got this other German boy. We went in there, and I says, "Look at it." I says, "I want you to take your finger and put it on the grenade and hold it still, and I'm going to get that box." So when I hit the box, it was welded, but I squeezed the box, and it disintegrated. And the only thing that was in there was a German dog tag, Ross. And the German dog tags are different than ours. Ours are square. There's an oval shape, and you break off. I don't know if people know what to do with it. They break off a person if he's dead, and they stick it in their teeth, and they keep one. like this, and that was the only thing in there. And I gave it to the German boy, and I says, when you get back to Germany, I says, please look this up and write to us. He said he couldn't. He wrote to us years later,
Yeah, he
not
did.
years later, and said couldn't trace it. Couldn't
yeah,
R-O-S-S, I think.
No,
that's-
RAUSS, I believe it was. And
And that's very interesting because the Germans keep meticulous records
Yeah.
of everything that happens to everyone. Well,
yeah.
But I think it was because they were the SS. It was probably that way because
could have been, but they still kept records of the
Yeah.
two
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
It was too bad,
Yeah.
but
And then
that
we,
was an adventure.
Then we cycled out of there and we ended up in Monte Carlo, right? And we did not have any clothes for the casino. And they let us in anyways, and we were camping. These yachts are there. I mean, unbelievable yachts, and we're camping on the beach, with our camp, and we go up to Monte Carlo. And we didn't have that much money. We had about $20 to gamble.
Yeah,
like
no, we
this.
didn't have
And I
much.
kept playing the same number, and she
It was
got
my birthday. I
yeah,
think I was 37
yeah.
or something like that. He played that number over and over. I said, the money was gone in a matter of minutes.
Yeah, and who was that movie star that was filming there?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, he was there.
I have no idea.
But it was something. You should have seen the money, though. I mean, all these people had money.
The other
money,
half lives.
Yeah.
They didn't know what to do with us there either. So we stayed there a couple days, and then we went on into Italy. And we happened to get there on the day of the Feast of the Assumption.
Okay.
Which were,
The August one? Is that the Assumption?
Yep.
And we didn't know, so we stopped, and of course everybody's inside this place that was built in 25 BC, open, and everyone's in there singing, drinking wine, and everything else. And we parked the bikes, and we're there standing there, and Mama Leone comes over to us, and she didn't speak English like this, and she says, and I went, hand signal, and she goes, no, like that, and I go, everybody else is eating. And she goes, moment. So she goes over and she gets this fellow like this, and he comes over and he spoke very good English. He says, she'd like to feed you, but she can't. And I said, what do you mean? She said, we're on our 5th course. She can't back it up to the 1st course and go forward. And I says, well, the only thing we're interested in, I says, is spaghetti, salad and vino. So he yells out, Mama Leone, they want the pasta, they want the vino, and they want the salad, right? Well, she came over and hugged us, right? And they took us over and they fed us. Then we tried to pay them. They wouldn't accept it. They didn't say we ate anything. They didn't consider it any food. I said, no. So now we're half on the wrapper on the bicycles, trying to ride the bikes down. Right? But it was amazing.
Well, we got a room that night.
Yeah, we got a room that night.
Right, practically across the street or right down the street. And then we got the train and went off to
Germany.
Heidelberg.
And then after Heidelberg,
Because that's where
Dick Pulishaw was.
his friend,
Friend of mine, school teacher.
Now, was there culture shock in Germany after having been to Italy and France?
It was different. It was, from completely. The Germans are very, very clean people. You talk about you can eat off the ground half the time, and we had no problems. I was there years before, after I got out of the service, and I didn't have and it was when I was there in the '60s. It still hadn't been redone yet from the Second World War. I mean, the building is like I met this person and I was staying with her, and it was like 5 stories, but there was only a bathroom on the 3rd floor. They didn't have bathrooms in each rooms.
Yeah.
And it was, they were still recuperating.
I was over there in 63 through 65 and stationed not too far from Nuremberg, and there plenty of the buildings still had bullet holes in them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There was still plenty of rubble all over the place.
yeah.
I mean, it was, there was no problem, especially with my last name, Hildebrandt, like that. And of course, the only thing they did, sprechen Sie Deutsch? I said, nein. And they go, why? I said, we've been fighting you folks. I'm sorry. I don't speak to your enemy.
They
They're just not as frivolous as.
No, they're not. They're not frivolous
no,
at all.
They're very structured.
Yeah,
and
very
so-
structured.
But polite, and, you know.
And I swear, if garbage men wore uniforms, they'd salute garbage men.
Yeah,
You know,
right, yeah.
bus conductors and all of that. It's boy, uniforms.
Yeah.
But I had fun over there.
Yeah.
But the Germans were very, very cold, very strict,
Yeah.
very exact.
Yes.
Talk about black and white. Boy, there's no gray over there. Over here, over there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It was. Yeah. That's the way to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yet still, you know, kind and, you know, not trying to hurt your feelings or anything like that. And I mean, they did what they had to do for you.
Yeah, basically that
Basically,
was about it.
yeah.
I worked with mostly older guys, Germans. They were the ones that really ran our post.
Okay.
And they were all World War II vets.
Yeah.
And amazing, we had 900 of them on post. Now, I didn't meet all 900,
Yeah.
but I met a lot of them. Not one of them fought on the Western Front. They all fought on the Eastern Front.
Really?
That's what
Yeah, right.
Yeah, of course it did. Yeah.
Only one. Only one. Tishna. He told me that he fought on the Western Front driving Tiger tank.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make many U.S. tanks, American tanks.
Yeah.
Boof. He was a piece of work.
Yeah. I guess.
But after we left there, we went to Holland, and Holland was, very interesting. As you know, that they have red lighthouses, and they had this one right.
The Voorburg Wall.
Yeah, and right along the walkway they had it, and of course, Kathy and I, I'm just walking along, I'm looking inside, and of course they're going, like go, like that. Yeah. So what happened is that then we were there for a couple days. Then we grabbed the ferry back to England, and
Did you go to the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam? RIKS
no, I
Museum.
don't believe so.
Oh, you know, I was over there. I was a GI over there. That was a place to go, you know. So I blundered onto the Rijksmuseum. They let me in for free.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah. I spent all day looking at the paintings of the Dutch masters.
oh wow, yeah.
And here I am, a 23 or 24-year-old GI, and but they were beautiful.
Yeah.
They were magnificent.
Yeah.
Rembrandt's Night Watch is a huge painting.
Yeah.
I must have looked at that for an hour. You just simply couldn't take a look at it and see it all.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. Did you go to the Anne Frank house?
Yes.
Yes.
We
Yeah,
went there.
that was somewhat of a disappointment.
Yeah, it was. You know, it was.
And now the big question. Did you, in Amsterdam, the city of bicycles, did you have Broody Van Coochie sandwiches? No. They're little push carts. And they're all over Amsterdam. Yeah. And it's very thinly sliced roast beef on freshly baked biscuits, salt and pepper and mayonnaise. Two of those for 28 cents, and you were set.
Yeah.
They were delicious.
Yeah.
Broody
No, we
Van
didn't
Coochie.
have those. No.
They're still out there.
Well,
According
maybe
to
next
someone that
time.
was over there.
So then after that, we grabbed the ferry over back to England, and we cycled into London and put the bikes on the plane and came home.
And came home.
Yeah.
So we covered all of that. But we did Europe another time also, and I don't know if we're going to get into that today.
Yeah.
No, we'll
because-
be winding it up here pretty
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing about it is that most people, they say they can't afford to go someplace. And yet we couldn't afford to go someplace. And
But
yet
you did.
We figured out a way of doing it with the bicycles.
Yeah.
And we camped at some great places. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Sleeping on the ground fun, Kathy?
It wasn't as bothersome then.
Oh.
It would be today.
Oh, well, it was when we got the first camper, my favorite Dodge, and I said, I'm never going back on the ground again. So, and now he's got the little Airstream, which I was not in favor of at all. I mean, I love it, but it's not what I wanted. But sometimes that happens.
You do what you have to do.
Well, you do, yeah. And we've had wonderful times.
This trip through Europe,
Yeah.
what was the most astounding thing you saw or experienced?
The thing that happened to us, and it was at Bally. Remember at the bar there, where those guys were? They were from Northern Ireland, and he gave us a lot of grief. And the guy went like this, a young kid, and he went like that. And guess what was there? A pistol.
Oh, his guns. Yeah.
Like
The
this.
IRA.
IRA. And I looked at him. I says, "You want that pistol somewhere else?" Like this. And the other guy says, "What?" He says, "This guy just, I wouldn't, you don't take, people don't realize, you don't take your eyes off the person that's your thing." I says, "That man has a pistol." They grabbed, they were out of there like in 2 seconds, and then we heard the sirens and everything else coming down. But they were the IRA. And that's the thing, you think you're safe, and you get some idiot like that, just, trying to show off, and, they probably took him out back and shot him.
Nah, I doubt it.
But we had really no problems whatsoever.
We really didn't. I mean, I loved Paris. I mean, and I still do. If I ever leave somewhere.
And the biggest disappointment?
I don't think I was ever really
I
disappointed.
don't think so. No, not on that trip.
There was no
Yeah.
reason to be because
No,
everything was
'cause everything
new
was
and,
wonderful and new and
people
different.
were
You were
kind.
experiencing
Yeah.
everything.
And like when we grabbed over the Alps instead of biking over the Alps, we're not going to bike over there anyways. I mean, everyone was, really tried to help us.
Yeah.
When we tell you about the other trips when we took the QE2 over and then we biked all
Were
the
you
way.
with Hannibal and the elephants when he crossed?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, folks. I hope that you enjoyed this beginning episode of the travel of the Hildebrandts. And it was an absolute delight to hear some of this stuff. And we're going to have them back for more. So write that in your appointment book. Peter and Kathy Hildebrandt, don't miss it next time.
Right, and I like to say the last thing too is that this is one of our smallest trips, and the one I'm going to tell you about later is that we've cycled around the world. And people say, what? And it started Alaska, Hawaii, Fiji, New Zealand, Australia, Hong Kong, China, and it's really quite interesting.
This was sort of like, Peter's wind-up was sort of like one of those Buck Rogers serials from 1939. Wait till you see what's going to happen next week.
I wasn't even born yet. Please.
Well, very good. Hey, folks, thank you very much for tuning in. And if you really enjoyed this, send large amounts of money in plain paper bags.
We'll get a new bicycle. And I'm still cycling too.
Thanks a lot, folks, and we'll see you next time.
That's it.